Welcome to Paco the Realtor channel, where I talk about real estate, rants, and other things that can make our life really interesting. And we're going to get started here real soon. Salud, everybody. What's up, Stephanie? What's up, David? What's up, Denise? I hope everything went well with the open house, David. But we can talk about that later. So, all right, guys, I'm going to go ahead and get started. It's 8 o'clock, and I promised it would only be 30 minutes, no more. And then I want to leave it for Q&A. I have a few questions that were emailed beforehand. So today's the first of a series that I'm doing. It's more of a webinar. It's a seminar. It's not just me talking. It's got a specific aim. It's something that would give you if you were in person. If you went to one of these first-time buyer seminars or all of that. So I'm going to go ahead and start. All right. So again, everybody, thanks for joining us today. I know some of you will be logging on and logging off. I want to tell you a story about Cisco. Cisco is somebody who I met 3 years ago who thought he would never buy a house. He thought he would never buy a house because he told me he would never buy a house. That's what he told me. After about a year, he called me up about renting. And I asked him, hey, do you help rent? And we kind of went into the whole thing. And I finally asked him, I said, why are you renting, first of all? And why aren't you buying? He goes, well, I have a growing family. And in my growing family, I need more bedrooms. I'm currently in a 2-bedroom condo that I'm renting, but I can't afford to buy. So I told him, how do you know? We went back and forth. And make a long story short, about 10 months went by, he rented another place, and he calls me up about renting another place because the owner was going to sell that house. Well, what ended up happening was when he called me the second time, I finally just reached out to him and said, hey, what am I missing here? This is the second time you call me to rent. Why aren't you buying? And he proceeded to say that he was scared because he had some medical issues. I did not know that his wife had medical issues in prior years and had a lot of medical bills. And they were freaking out about that. He didn't know, he just assumed because he had these medical bills that he would not be able to do anything with it. So after talking to him and making him feel comfortable, I had to meet with a lender, and they ran his stuff, and sure enough, he had a lot of medical issues. But under his circumstances, those medical issues weren't going to deter him from buying a house. In other words, they weren't an issue with him buying a house. He thought they were. So move forward to 2.5 years now. He is a homeowner. He's owned a house now for almost 2 years. The process wasn't easy, which kind of like I'll be talking about throughout what I'm talking about. But I'll never forget this. When we went when the escrow closed and I met him at the house to give him his keys, his son was with him. As soon as we walk in, his son asks him, Dad, how long are we going to be here? Because his son was used to renting, and they were moved every few years. And he said, no, this is ours, we're not. His son started crying, goes, you mean I could pick my bedroom and not have to worry about unpacking and moving? It turns out his son had had gotten into the habit of not unpacking his toys because he was scared that they were going to move again, so what was the point? So his son started crying and said, I'm going to unpack every toy I have, which then made Cisco cry. It's a great story because it talks about the emotional aspect, which I'm going to be talking about, but it talks about the reason why I have this webinar / seminar, because a lot of people don't know the process, don't understand the process, are embarrassed to ask about the process, have something in their past that they're scared to share, which they think is holding them back from buying. And that's why I'm creating these type of webinars once a month. So, all right, we need to separate fiction from fact. So let's start. 7 steps to home buying. Step number 1, numbers are keys. Excuse me, guys. Numbers are keys. What do I mean by that? Numbers don't lie. Numbers never lie. But yet somehow there's some mystical thing out there. If you're planning on buying, the first thing you need to do is know your numbers. What's the loan amount you can afford? What's the interest rate? What are the closing costs? What's the down payment? Do not look at homes to it. Do not let somebody convince you to look at homes until you have those numbers. Numbers do not lie. Numbers dictate where you can buy and what you can buy. So when people call us up and say, I want to start the process, the first thing we just put them in contact with a lender, right? That's going to give them those numbers. Do not do anything without those numbers. The reason this step is so important is because a lot of people will go to look at homes, open houses, fall in love with a house they can't afford or they don't know their numbers. A common question we get is, how much would my payment be on a house like this? Well, I mean, I don't know. What's your interest rate? What's your FICO? How much money? What's your DT? I mean, there's so many factors, right? So know your numbers. They're key. Without your numbers, you're going to be lost throughout this process, and it's only going to be all emotions. So number one, first step to home buying, know your numbers. Know your numbers. Step two, you're not going to like this. A compromise is going to have to be made when you buy the home. What? But I want my house. So why do I got to compromise? There's no such thing as the perfect home. As a matter of fact, that's one of the biggest problems we have is the expectation is up here, but what you can afford is down here. You're going to make a compromise. Location. You might have to be in a place that is a little farther from your work, but more in your budget. Or you move closer to your work, but you get a smaller, older home. Compromise. Both are options, but one's a compromise with the other, right? And people tend to fight that, you know? Hey, Carl. Carl's here, my credit guy. So don't compromise. Do not compromise. I mean, I apologize. Do not compromise. Do not compromise with buying a home, but there will be a emotional compromise, right? I have a client right now going through it. Do they move to Corona, get an older, smaller home? Or do they buy in Riverside and get a bigger, newer home? The difference in drive is about 20 minutes. So there's a compromise there, okay? You're going to compromise with the price. If you're pre-qualified for $450,000, do you buy at the top of the at your price point at $450,000, or do you compromise at $400,000 to get the house at a more manageable payment? Just because you could buy it at $450,000 doesn't mean you should, right? That's a compromise. Condition. Should I buy a house that's newer, more expensive, or should I get an older home that needs cosmetic work? Compromise. No home is ever perfect. If I'm a millionaire, no home is ever perfect. And the reason this is so important, which that's gonna lead us into the next one, is this has to do a lot more with emotions. People make this very emotional about like, no, I need this, I need this, I need this. They get it in their head, and then when reality slaps them in their face, they get demotivated, not demoted, demotivated, and they no longer do anything. So if we set the correct expectation from beginning, then guess what? Then this process goes a lot easier, which leads us to step number 3. Emotion versus numbers. Numbers. I'm not willing to pay more than $2,500. Emotion. But the house at $2,700 a month is perfect in a better neighborhood. Right? Numbers versus emotion. Higher payment versus lower payment versus cheaper home, or vice versa. The other part of this is the overall big picture of it. And let me explain what I mean by that. People get emotionally fall in love with a house at the top of the market, $2,700 a month. Let's say that's your budget. But you don't take into consideration everything else. You know, utilities, all these other expenses. Are you going to have to stop going to Starbucks every day? Are you going to have to quit that membership that you haven't gone to in 3 years? Are you going to have to quit CrossFit? Are you going to have to get rid of expensive sports? Emotional versus numbers. Numbers dictate everything we do when buying and selling a home, period. We try to take the emotion out of it. I am the one person in the transaction that should not be emotional. If you qualify for $2,700 and the most you want to spend is $2,300, then yep, 20, that's it. So when you send me a house that your payment would be $2,600, that's emotion. That's not logic. Now, can you afford it? Yes, but you have already made a financial decision that you don't want to afford that because you know your numbers. So why are we looking at those other houses? Numbers versus emotions. We must be outside our comfort zone when we go through this whole process. And what I mean by that is buying a home is emotional. Next to death and divorce, buying and selling a home is one of the most emotional and difficult times in your life. So you fall in love with a house. You look in the back, it's a perfect backyard. It's perfect for the, what's up, Hector? It's perfect for everything. And then, but it's at the top of your price point, which you said you didn't want to do. So now do the emotions take over and say, but it's the perfect house. We got the big yard. This is what we want. Or do you stick to your numbers and say, no? And this is a struggle because emotions tend to be more powerful than logic, right? Emotions tend to be more powerful than logic. I wanted to stay in the $2,500, but the $2,700 home is perfect and that's what I'll take. Now, there's nothing wrong with that as long as you understand the implication of, okay, I'm spending $200 more a month than I wanted. So where am I going to make up those $200? Big picture. Get rid of the gym membership you don't go to. Get rid of Starbucks. Get rid of fast food. There's your $200. Now you can afford it. But you got to be realistic. Numbers versus emotion. Okay? Which then leads us to number 4. Motivation versus frustration. I will be a freaking liar if I tell you that this is going to go smooth and you're not going to have issues. Buying a home can be very frustrating. It will be frustrating. Expect it. Understand it. But don't lose motivation because it is. And don't be scared off because it is. There's going to be a time where you're going to want to give up. You've been searching. You looked at 15 homes. You're overwhelmed. You're frustrated. You made an offer on one. You didn't get it. You're pissed off. Name all of the above, right? It's just not ideal. You want to go on a break. No, you're just tired and burned out. Because emotionally it's burning you out. So you lose your motivation. It is our job to hold you accountable to your goals. And that goal is what? To buy a home. If that means I have to go drive your house, drag you outside your house, get you in the car to go look at the houses, that's what we're going to do. Because that is your goal, not mine. But it is my job to hold you accountable to that goal. So understand that the process, and you have to understand the process, is a challenging one in that there will be frustrations. And a lot of it has to do with big picture versus small picture. Big picture is no matter what happens, I'm going to get a home. Small picture, this is frustrating. I'd rather go on vacation. I can't deal with this anymore. I want to give up. There's no houses out there for me. It's the wrong time to buy. You just go on and go on, right? All these excuses. Well, that's the frustrating part that's coming from the processes. And it is our job to make sure you keep motivated, to hold you accountable to your goals. So understand, don't be intimidated and don't be scared of the process, but understand if it was easy, everybody would do it, right? There's not one person in this world who is pissed off that they bought a house. Now, they're all going to tell you part of it might have sucked, but they're not pissed off they bought it. So understand that. So that's number 4. Number 5, expect the challenges in the escrow. So you spend all of this time finding a house. You finally make an offer and get the offer accepted. Good. Well, we're in the state of California. Now we got to disclose inspection, appraisal, termite, title. They're going to verify your tax returns. They're going to verify everything. Now the frustrating part starts because it only takes one of those things to screw you up and you get started all over again. And don't take it personal. I had an escrow right now that fell out because, well, potentially it's falling out because the buyers found a IRS tax lien. And it's, did they know it was there? I don't know. But at the end of the day, their goal is still to buy, so they're still trying to deal with it. Well, they're going to start verifying income, verifying employments. They're going to do a 4506T, verify tax returns. They're going to verify banks. They're going to verify everything. Don't take it personal. If they see a deposit of cash for $300, there's a deposit of cash for $300. That's just what it is. They want to know where it is. They want to make sure you didn't get a loan somewhere. That's part of the process. So understand, it's not personal when they start asking all these evasive questions. You know, hey, your bank statement shows you've been overdrawn 15 times. Well, crap, that's because you constantly use your ATM for everything, and you never balance your checkbook. And it doesn't make you a bad person. You're just not very organized, and now you have all these overdrafts, and now they're asking questions. Don't take it personal. They just want to make sure you can afford the home. So that's number 4. Number 5, time is always against you. Okay? Always. The longer you wait to buy a home, the longer you're in the process, the less motivated you are. And in today's instance, it's times against you because of interest rates. And let me give you an example. We keep saying that rates are going to go up, and they're probably going to be at 6% by the end of the year. Let's assume they are, right? If right now I purchase a home for $370,000 in the Inland Empire at 5% interest rate, my payment would be $2,611. Okay, roughly $2,611, paying 3.5% down. Now, if I decide not to buy, and I decide to buy next year because, I don't know, I want to save more money, I want to pay off bills, whatever it may be, and I buy that same home at $370,000, but it's now at 6%, I am paying $240 more a month. $240 more a month. Or, you look at it this way. Let's assume $2,600 is the max I can afford. The lender won't let me borrow $1 more. Well, because the rate went up 1%, I no longer can afford that $370,000 home that I was looking at 5%. Now, I can only afford a home at $340,000. Hey, thank you so much for watching our videos. I appreciate it. If you really like the content, go ahead and like and subscribe to our channel. We'll be putting out a lot of content on a weekly basis, which will be real estate related and a lot of stuff of just me ranting. So thank you. Remember, subscribe.